UFC 304 Leon Edwards versus Belal Muhammad 2 has just taken place, with Mikhaev and Cap pulling a reverse card on all the fans for all the wrong reasons. Paddy the Baddie making a flawless statement in his performance. Tom Aspinall showing why he is the most dangerous human on this planet. And Belal Muhammad breaking the MMA world as we know it. And in this video, I'm going to be giving you a recap of every single fight on the card and ranking all of the card's best moments. So let's kick it off with the first fight of Shauna Bannon versus Ardelean. So in this fight, when it came to the start of it, Ardelean was 100% taking over. I mean, her takedowns, her control time especially. I mean, Bannon just didn't really have answers when Ardelean was in top control. She secured the takedowns well. I mean, 2 out of 4 of them, that was all in the first round, and she was sticking a pretty good jab as well throughout most of the fight, but I mean, towards the end of the fight, it wasn't looking too great. And when we look at the second round, that was kind of the swing round, I would say, realistically, for this fight. It wasn't super, I wouldn't say it was super entertaining or anything like that, and there wasn't a lot of actual MMA skill really on display in this fight. But yeah, that second round was very close. Bannon, she was landing obviously more compared to the first round, which made it close, but when she tried to exchange when it came to the takedowns, she just wasn't getting anywhere. Her hip throws were very predictable for Ardelean, and she was just stuffing them completely and then gaining control off of that. And then her blitzes as well, Bannon's blitzes, she was becoming pretty predictable when it came to those blitzes, but Ardelean pretty much had no head movement as well. So she was landing them, but yeah, it was pretty much the same combination every time. But that front leg side kick that she does have, definitely Bannon's best weapon, was actually putting in some work, because the further the fight went through, Ardelean was just not moving. Her stamina was really plummeting. I mean, she was looking so gassed in that third round. I'm like, that's where the bet's gonna go. And it did. Yeah, split decision, and I did have it Bannon's way, to be fair. I think she did deserve it overall. I think she just had more volume in that second round. First round, absolutely dumped. Ardelean definitely took that first round, but the second round, I'd probably swing it to her out of the volume. And then the third round, she completely took over. She was just way more active, and that was the decisive round to get her the win for sure. So there wasn't a whole lot of, great like technical MMA skill in this fight, but I mean, we got through it, and the fight card definitely got a lot better after this. Moving up, Mick Parkin versus Lukasz Brzeski. So in the first half of that first round, give a little bit of credit to Brzeski. He was actually getting the advantage over Parkin when it came to the speed. But after that, Parkin just took over completely. I mean, he found his reads extremely well, and his lead left hook, that was really dictating the pace. Every time Brzeski tried to come forward, Parkin lead left hook counter would just stop him in his tracks. And it was just, I mean, that's what set up the finishing blow as well. He got the left hook, landed the right hand, he over Brzeski's jab, got the overhand right over his jab, put him on skates. He was done. There's no way Brzeski was getting out of that. And yeah, Parkin's just really showing. I know, like, it's Tom Aspinall did say a bit about it when it came to his performances. Like, he did get the 100k bonus, which is fantastic for him, especially just being able to break into that top 15. It's probably given him a lot more motivation. But I will say that, like, his performances have been good in the UFC, but they haven't been, like, entertaining per se. They've been very much decisive on decisions. So he's very good with his volume and his striking overall, but he's not really someone to take a lot of risks. But I mean, he doesn't need to. I mean, he's moving to 4-0 in the UFC right now, and he is one of the most underrated fighters in that heavyweight division and in the UFC at the moment, which I mentioned in my most underrated fighters video, which I'll leave in the description below. Definitely recommend you check that one out, because I go a lot more into Mick Parkin in that video. But now I think it's time for Mick Parkin, without a doubt. Just give him a top 15 shot. Moving up to our first perfect prediction, Sam Patterson versus Kiefer Crosbie. So I would definitely confident in this pick. I mean, honestly, I don't think Kiefer is just UFC caliber, to be honest. I just don't see any part of his game that's really that fantastic. Yeah, I get that he was coming in onto this fight on short notice, But I just, aside from like, if he can really get off with his boxing, he just doesn't have anything to offer. He's a liability on the ground as well. Like, I just don't really see it compared to a lot of the fighters that are in that welterweight division, especially with the wrestling pedigree in that division. I just don't see him getting anywhere, to be honest. And when we look at Patterson, I mean, landed a super clean uppercut in the exchange. His striking was on point. Everything was on point for Patterson in this fight. I mean, landed a clean uppercut, got the body lock, went straight to the ground, and just from there, I mean, Patterson got to exercise the best part of his game and expose the worst part of Kiefer's game. So easy arm triangle submission there. Kiefer was not intellectually defending it, you know, at all. He wasn't answering the phone or anything like that to give himself oxygen, give himself space to get that pressure off his neck, and Patterson just adjusted completely and took him out. So aside from that boxing for Crosbie, I think he's finished, to be honest. I just don't really see him going anywhere. And Patterson, when it comes to the boxing, he looked fantastic. He looked very good striking, very good jiu-jitsu as well. And I've said it in the predictions, if he really tweaks that offensive wrestling game and makes sure that he's keeping his chin tucked, he's going to look fantastic, I think, especially with that 78-inch reach. It's just a cheat code. I think he will look very good. And he's younger too. He's on the younger side. So yeah, very good win for Patterson, especially to get that confidence back and to get on a bit of a win streak. Moving up, Modestas Bakauskas versus Marcin Prachnio. This was actually a pretty decent fight, to be honest. I actually really enjoyed this one. I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did. They both actually performed very well. I mean, Prachnio, obviously he lost, but he had a very good amount of output and was mixing up his strikes very well. But Bakauskas he's just got a bit more of a physical presence. He's a bit more technical, clean with his straight shots. And I thought Prachnio would struggle with that a little bit. But those leg kicks at Prachnio are something else. He's got leg kicks and that close range head kick. He's got some flexibility as well, which definitely caught Bakauskas off guard and had him on skates a little bit, to be honest. Prachnio actually did do pretty well, but it was Bakauskas' fight to win. I think he was just landing the better shots in the exchanges. I mean, he did a very good job of just consistently landing strikes and keeping Prachnio like on the back foot for pretty much most of that fight. I will say with Prachnio, I mean, he had the flurry. He did have the flurry at the start of the third round, which was looking dangerous for Bakauskas, but he overextended through that flurry. And that's where Bakauskas got to obviously get him down and get that arm triangle finish, which I don't think anyone would have really predicted this one to end in a submission from either of these guys. It was definitely a pretty tricky card on the picks, but yeah, Bakauskas did have a very good performance. I mean, the reach advantage, the takedowns as well, secured 2 out of 2 of them. And yeah, he just adjusted very well after being in danger from Prachnio in that last round. And it was a competitive fight, so it could have, honestly, it was borderline going either way. But Bakauskas did readjust very well. And yeah, he got that arm triangle finish. So yeah, back-to-back arm triangles here. So yeah, very good win for Bakauskas in all honesty. And it's good to see that, I mean, he's had some pretty tough fights here and there throughout the UFC. So it's good for him to really get back on into the groove and hopefully just make a bit more of a run now. And it's good that he gets to kind of mold his game more when it comes to the submission win, because he's so known for his kickboxing and just straight boxing. It's good to show that he's got more depth to his game. Moving up, Oban Elliott versus Preston Parsons. So this one I 100% got wrong. I mean, there isn't really too much to say about this. When we look at Oban Elliott, you look at his last couple of fights, and honestly, personally for me, I wasn't too impressed with him, to be honest. Like, he was pretty boring throughout most of his fights that he had. I mean, the Val Woodburn fight pretty left a fair bit to be desired as well. But in this fight against Parsons, he looked exceptional. Like, all parts of his game looked on point, realistically. I mean, his striking, you know, he's not a KO threat or anything like that, but he was very crisp with his striking. But the name of the game when it came to this matchup was Oban Elliott's takedown defense. It was pretty much flawless. He stuffed 8 out of 9 of Parsons' takedown attempts, and the one that Parsons landed in that third round, Elliott just threatened him with an armbar straight off that takedown attempt. So he was just very aware. He was just on point this whole entire fight. And I had Parsons in this fight going into it. I thought the wrestling would be able to overtake it. Completely opposite way around. I mean, Oban Elliott stuffed absolutely everything. Haven't seen too much of a takedown threat on him, but now we know it's really not honestly gonna work. His takedown defense is extremely good, and that's actually with a lot of these English guys. Their takedown defense is extremely good, usually. We'll get to Leon Edwards later. Yes, but yeah, Oban Elliott, seriously, fantastic performance. I mean, he did look impressive on the feet as well. He was dictating the pace very well, just in the entire fight, and he just didn't give Parsons much room to breathe. He was doing extremely well when it just came to pressuring, and he made the control time count. I mean, getting 5 minutes control time over Preston Parsons, who had just 2 minutes, is pretty impressive, knowing Preston Parsons' style. So yeah, Oban Elliott coming into the UFC just being like this early, he's done a fantastic job. And not only for him, it's actually putting Wales on the map as well. So if he can keep going and he has performances like that, we might be able to get some more talent out of Wales. So yeah, fantastic performance from Elliott. And honestly, if he just rounds out his striking a bit more and gets that output going, I think he'll be a pretty big problem moving forward. Okay, Muhammad Mokaev versus Manel Cap. What in the bipolar small man syndrome bullshit was this fight? They, like, honestly, coming into this fight, they both wanted to first degree murder the shit out of each other, leading all the way up through the walkouts. When they're in the cage, they were starting each other, which was extremely cringe. And we get into the fight and we get absolutely no action in that first round. I mean, there was pretty much nothing there. I mean, aside from like the end of the round where Manel did like land a pretty nice flurry, he got the best shot of that round. There just really wasn't anything there. I mean, Mokaev was just pot-shotting him the whole entire round, and Mokaev took that round. I believe he took that round. Obviously, you've got that argument of that singular damage of Manel Cap's flurry, or you've got the whole round of Mokaev landing consistent shots with the kicks, which I am more so going to edge it to Mokaev in terms of that consistent output, to be honest. Manel Cap's a striker, and he got outlanded by Mokaev, who is a crotch sniffer. So yeah, I'd probably be giving it to Mokaev in that first round. And then when we look at the second round, Manel broke his toe, kept pressuring forward. Then Mokaev tries to get kinky and take Cape's bloody pants off completely, and then eye pokes Cape. And he didn't even get a point deducted by Beltran, which Beltran is an absolute Chad. He was showing who was boss, obviously, clearly.
You're gonna stand right here. I'm talking to you. Don't put yourself in a position that I have to enforce the rules. You understand? I'm gonna take away your position. That's your last warning.
It was just a fucking weird fight. It was just so strange. I just don't even know where to actually go with this in terms of a recap. There's just so many weird things that happened in this fight. And that's where it's like, even though it wasn't like a war, we still just got some crazy random shit happening, which was, to me at least, aside from that first round, the second and third round were actually fairly entertaining. And I will say, in terms of like an actual analytical sense, if we look at Mokaev, his striking has improved. His striking's actually looking decent, especially with those kicks. Because, he was mixing it up with the teep kicks. He had a question mark kick in there and that spinning heel kick as well. Which, he said, like, I'm trying to knock him out like Barboza or some shit like that. But yeah, Mokaev, I don't think he's gaining many more fans with the way he is fighting. And obviously that's why you see Dana's pissed and all that stuff. Like, it's rough. It's tricky. I think for him especially. I think people forget he is only 23 years old. Like, he is so young. Like, I think he needs to be cut a little bit of slack in a sense, but like, I mean, because at 23, you're still developing a style. Like, you're not just, you're not one and done with his particular style. Like, he's got so much time to round out his game. And if he stays in the UFC, he'll be a champion. I'm pretty convinced he'll be a champion without a doubt, honestly, at some point in time. But I will say on Manel Cap's side, like when it comes to the fight specifically, I mean, the takedown defense of his was very good. He stuffed over half of Makayev's takedowns, and Makayev is obviously a very good chain wrestler. And I will say his urgency as well. I mean, his urgency when he was in that third round and when he had on his back, he did a very good job of making sure he made it count in terms of the damage that he did off his back with those elbows. I mean, he just elbowed Makayev a ridiculous amount of times, which, you know, it's better than just laying there, especially. And it's obviously hard for him to post, hard for him to get up when he's got a bloody broken toe, or his toe was extremely damaged. I'm not sure if it was actually broken, but overall, look, it's not a fight that lives up to what it was supposed to be. I mean, you look at all the shit talking that happened before this. Everyone was very hyped, and then it was getting chucked all over the place when it came to the positioning on the card. I mean, it went from main card, it went from main card, prelims, early prelims, back up to prelims. Yes, just so messy. Like the whole thing, everything about this fight just reeks of it being messy. And overall, honestly, like, even though it's just, you know, not super entertaining or anything like that, you have to give it to Makayev in terms of, you know, giving out that volume and making sure that he was, you know, he was pushing the pace. Manel Cap wasn't, probably down to the toe injury, but yeah, he was the one that was pushing the pace, had the volume, and had the control advantage, obviously, there in that third round too. So I would give him the fight. I would give Makayev the win in this fight, in all honesty. But it does look like, according to Dana, it doesn't look like he's going to be getting signed after this, because if you haven't seen already Dana's post-fight speech.
But Makayev is the guy that you'd want to bring back to the UFC, because he said his contract is totally done now.
Yeah, he is. He's under contract. He's not under contract anymore.
Okay. But would you be interested in, you know, keeping him around in the fall?
I think the PFL is going to get a great undefeated guy.
Really?
Good luck to him.
Which, when he says that, I think that there's more so like internal issues for Makayev. Like, it's not necessarily like his performance specifically. I think there's things in the background in terms of matchmaking and just dealing with him in general. I think there's some issues there. But I don't think it is the greatest idea from the UFC to cut, well, obviously not cut him, but to not give him another contract, because realistically, when it comes to divisions like flyweight and any women's divisions and like heavyweight, you really want to be maintaining depth in those divisions. And Makayev is a top fighter. He's a quality fighter in there. But, I mean, he's just not doing himself any favors with this performance. And, you know, the performance in comparison to the shit talk is just digging himself a deeper hole. And Manel Cap's probably the same, in all honesty. But Manel Cap's a striker, so he's got more leeway there, especially stylistically. But I do think, honestly, with Dana saying that, and Makayev, you know, like wanting, like he's shouting out, I want to renew my contract, blah, 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 blah. I think if we give it a couple weeks, I think it's going to blow over, and then I think they will re-sign Makayev. I think it's just a spur of the moment kind of thing, to be honest. I just don't really. I mean, Makayev's just going to ransack anyone in the bloody PFL in flyweight, and then he's going to be staying there winning all the time until like he starts knocking people out, and then the UFC is just going to fucking sign him again. So I feel like it's a bit pointless. You may as well just keep him, honestly. I think it's a bit silly from Dana and the UFC if they do go down that route. Because, yeah, it's either that, he stays in the UFC, and then, you know, we have a bit more title challenges in there, and he gets tested on the feet, or he goes to the PFL and he just starts ragdolling absolutely everyone. Moving up, Jake Hadley versus Caolàn Loughran. Hadley, man. Hadley. Like, he looks a lot better, a lot healthier, a lot just more attuned and accustomed to bantamweight. Looks much better at 135 compared to flyweight. And especially with that speed differential, he just looked very good. And this is him on short notice. He looked fantastic. Very, very clear 30-27 win for him in this fight. That's down to his performance, obviously. But then you look at Loughran. I mean, he just could not get in the groove. He could not find his range to save his fucking life. He just wasn't making the fight fight dirty enough. I mean, he obviously tried for the takedowns, but Hadley, very, very good takedown defense, stuffed 7 out of 8 of those takedowns, and Loughran really couldn't do anything with the control. Like, he just looked flat in there, like some other people up the card. He just looked flat, and yeah, Hadley just ran away with it. Honestly, his pacing, he just looked better. I mean, he looked just a lot smoother with the striking, the straight strikes. He's picking apart Loughran with the jab, hurt him pretty badly in the first round as well. And that's down to Loughran. He just does not take his head off that center line. Like, I know he's got a brick head, but I mean, he needs a bit more movement. I think he relies so much on that durability, and that's where it's becoming, especially moving up the rankings, just up the division in terms of fighting more quality opponents, it's becoming more of a detriment to him. And when it came to his striking as well, I mean, with Hadley picking him apart with that jab, he just couldn't string any combinations together because he couldn't get in range. So I think it's a fantastic win for Hadley, but I think it's extremely tricky for Loughran because the way he is physically, he's too big for flyweight, but his reach is honestly just too short for bantamweight. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he does moving forward, but a fantastic win for Hadley now moving into this division. Moving up, Molly McCann versus Bruna Brasil. I am so gassed with this pick. I picked Bruna Brasil, and honestly, I was so damn confident on this pick. Molly McCann is just too overhyped. She's just way too overhyped. Like, I had Bruna Brasil confident lock on this card. Honestly, probably one of my most confident picks on this card, obviously along with Tom Aspinall. And I just think with McCann, there's just too much like home bias. I mean, she's fighting in England half the time, and she just has so much hype around her, and she's been carried. That hype has been carried by Paddy Pimblett, and Paddy Pimblett, obviously, look, we'll get into him, but different levels of fighters in their respective divisions. And Molly McCann just, she hasn't figured it out, whether she's strawweight, whether she's flyweight. She's still testing things, but I just feel like she's just doesn't have that grit, that strength to really make any kind of play. I just don't feel like she's great in any actual position. And honestly, moving on to Bruna Brasil, one of the best performances of the night. She's coming out of that Fighting Nerds gym. I mean, she's moved to that gym now, and that gym is insane. Honestly, she looks fantastic. She looked fantastic in this fight. She tore apart Molly's body with the knees and the kicks as well. And Molly almost got folded like a lawn chair when she got hit in the body in the first round. And credit to her, she actually made it out of the first round, but she just didn't pose any form of threat to Bruna Brasil. I mean, Bruna had the reach, utilizing that reach so well, and as I said in the predictions, her striking is just so much better than Molly McCann's. She just utilizes her range so well, rips the body, and yeah, Molly McCann could not get in range to save her life. I think this is a fantastic win for Bruna Brasil, who is extremely underrated in that division. Yes, she had a couple losses, but yeah, with the gym change and, especially with her physical attributes as well, I think she's going to be doing bits. And honestly, with those training partners that she does have, I think her jiu-jitsu is just going to improve so much more. So give her 2-3 years, she's going to be a problem in that division. And Molly McCann, she needs to be cherry-picked another opponent to get another win. Otherwise, eventually, I think she's going to get cut. And moving on to the feature prelim, Nathaniel Wood versus Daniel Pineda. This was all Wood, obviously. I mean, aside from the third round, he was just running the show. I mean, the biggest takeaway from his performance was, without a doubt, the strike speed and the movement against a 38-year-old Daniel Pineda. Pretty self-explanatory there. I mean, very tough matchup for Pineda to take, which I did state in the predictions. Wood was just dictating that pace with his tools. I mean, the straight strikes were very good. The teep kick as well, teeps were very good. I mean, crippled Daniel Pineda's body in that first round with the teep kick. And yeah, he just did a very fantastic job. I mean, aside from Wood, I mean, when we look at Pineda, I will say that he had the more control in the fight, but he only used it to really keep out of danger and not get finished. He didn't really do anything with it per se. Like, he had, they were both pretty even when it came to the total strikes, but the significant strikes that you can see on the screen, Nate Wood doubled Pineda's significant strikes. So that's just to tell there statistically. You know that Wood was just landing the better shots, making the most of those striking opportunities, more so than he was making on the ground, where Pineda was really landing the pot shots on the ground. And that's just an indication that he was really just trying to keep himself safe on the ground. And Nate Wood, honestly, it's just a perfect pick match for him because of that speed. I mean, you can't really... I mean, it's rough for him if he lost, for sure, without a doubt. But Pineda, I mean, you know, you can't forget, the guy's won every single fight that he's won every single fight that he has won has been by finish. So you can't deny Pineda in that sense. And Wood, honestly, I will say that he needs a serious looking at now. Like, he's spent a lot of time in the UFC, and since 2022 he's now 4-1 in the UFC. So I think that this was a great pick by the UFC to make as the feature prelim. I will say that it was definitely entertaining, good pacing, especially with this fight, just consistently. And Nate Wood, honestly, he needs to be looking at a top 15 at this point. And moving on to the main card, Arnold Allen versus Giga Chikadze. This was, as I said in the predictions, this was just a guaranteed good fight. Fun fight. Very good way to kick off the main card. Very good positioning for the card. And when it came to the first round, I mean, this was competitive. Giga was doing a very good job of keeping his range in that first round and throwing those. He was shoveling his kicks into Arnold Allen's arms, and I think that was a good play if it really, you know, if he kept it going through the 3 rounds and he was able to actually keep the forward pressure, which obviously he couldn't, but really wearing down Allen's arms in case Allen was obviously trying to shoot, trying to get a takedown. Obviously, if his arms are heavier, it's going to be harder, especially to push through and actually secure the takedown, but also his strike speed as well. And that power from Allen is the dangerous part with his boxing. And if Giga could have cut that down, then that would have been his best opportunity to really take this fight. And Giga, obviously, he was, you know, mincing the arms, and his strike speed was very good, and he was circling very well. But after that first round, which I was always to say, Giga, I think he won that first round, but after that, Allen just showed appropriate urgency in the fight. I mean, in the second and third rounds, that he kind of knew, he's like, okay, I think I need to wake up a little bit in this after that first round, from the first to the second round. I think that's when he really thought, okay, I need to wake up a bit. And he did what he was supposed to do. He put Giga on the back foot. He got aggressive, and that is the key to beating Giga Chikadze. Thank you, Calvin Kattar. And his shots just had so much more weight behind them. I mean, Giga's got the kicks, but Allen in that range, when he's pressuring forward, his hands have so much more power than Giga's. Giga's all in the kicks, and he's cutting off that kickboxing range of Giga by pressing him backwards. And Allen was landing very good shots. I mean, busted Giga's nose. I think it was in the third round. I think it was towards the third round, or possibly the end of the second. Yeah, he busted Giga's nose pretty badly, and I think just with the damage overall, that's obviously going to swing it in Allen's favor, and just dictating the pace overall. He played the exact game plan that I thought he would. Another perfect prediction, thank God, because this card has been an absolute minefield. But yeah, honestly, even though Allen had a fantastic performance, as I said in those predictions though, you can't ever count out Giga Chikadze's durability. I mean, it's absolutely nothing to laugh at. And as good as Allen is, as much power that he has, I did not think that he would be getting Giga Chikadze out of there. So yeah, good to hold up for Giga Chikadze, but yeah, Arnold Allen, just the better fighter, and a great win for him to get back in that win column after fighting Buddy Holloway and Movsar Evloev. Moving up, Christian Leroy Duncan versus Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez. This fight was honestly, I think this was my favorite fight of the night. I really love this fight. I mean, they were slogging it on the feet. Like, Duncan was out of his comfortable actual space. You know, he likes to be at range. Rodriguez was not letting that happen. And the ground transitions as well from Gregory Rodriguez were very good. And Duncan did a good job of keeping himself safe as well. Like, honestly, he actually did a good job of being able to survive. But most of the time, that's kind of what he was just doing. And also, to top it off, there's just blood absolutely everywhere, which is, you know, it's nice in those kind of fights. But as I said in the predictions, I think that just that experience and that clinch striking of RoboCop is what was really going to be taking over in this fight. And that's just really what swayed it for him in this fight for every single round. I mean, the power as well, when it came to those exchanges, he was the one that was just getting the better of them. I mean, with a 75-inch reach compared to Duncan having that 79-inch reach, Duncan just had to keep him at range, but RoboCop just wasn't letting it happen. And he did a very good job of closing that distance, and he gave Duncan a huge hematoma in the first round, and then busted him up in the with those hooks. He was just swinging hooks in the exchanges, and he was landing a lot of them, especially in the second round. He almost dropped Duncan. I thought he was going to finish Duncan in that second round, but you got to give the respect to Duncan in this fight. I mean, he was so durable, and he made sure that he got into positions where he was surviving. Even in the third round, when Rodriguez had his back, he couldn't secure the choke as well. And yeah, it's just down to Rodriguez playing the perfect game plan of not allowing Duncan to fight at distance with those kicks that he has. And yeah, honestly, I think it was a perfect performance from Rodriguez. He got like one split on his eyebrow, like on his like left eyebrow, but aside from that, honestly, I thought it was a borderline flawless performance from him, to be honest. I think it was very impressive, and it's hard for Duncan, obviously. Fighting someone like Rodriguez, it's very hard to put that guy away. I mean, he's just a physical absolute specimen. Like, I don't know how the hell he even makes middleweight. He is crazy. But yeah, it's great for Rodriguez to, you know, get back closer to the rankings, and that's what's really needed for the rankings, especially in middleweight. Need an entertaining fighter like RoboCop very close to there, or hopefully at some point in there. Moving up, King Green versus Paddy Pimblett. Pimblett shut me the fuck up. He just did it. He looked fantastic. Honestly, a flawless finish from him. And at the same time, I'm gonna say it might sound like an excuse, but myself, and I would bet money on it, you and no one else expected Bobby Green to shoot on Paddy Pimblett for a takedown in the first round when they are dry. Why do that? I know Bobby Green kind of slipped a bit, but why just push for the takedown? It's honestly, it was just a one-way trip for Paddy Pimblett to finish him. Honestly, crazy things happen in MMA, obviously. It's, you know, that's just the way the fights go a lot of the time, but the fact that he shot him when he was dry is just, yeah, just no fight IQ play there, honestly. There was because there was just absolutely no chance of Bobby Green being able to slip out. No way. Not a chance, especially when Paddy secured that triangle after the guillotine. Yeah, just no chance. It was not possible for Green to get out of it. As experienced as he is, yeah, no chance. And, you know, that's credit to Paddy. I mean, he took the opportunity, he seized the opportunity, and rightfully he should be getting a 200k bonus for that. I mean, transitioning from the guillotine to a triangle, then getting an armbar on an already unconscious Bobby Green just to, you know, throw dirt in his eyes, kick him while he's down. But I mean, it was a cold finish. It was awesome. It was extremely impressive, and I mean, Bobby Green was completely out cold. So, like, it was bad too. I mean, it took him about 30 seconds to get back up. Paddy Pimblett was literally dancing around, you know, like the nutcase he is, and then that was about 30 seconds, and he turns around, and Bobby Green's still just flat on the canvas. So yeah, Paddy Pimblett, 100%, fantastic win for him. Proved a lot of doubters wrong, including myself. And yeah, honestly, I will say for the ref, it's, you know, probably could have been called a little bit earlier, but it's also kind of hard to see Bobby Green's head shoved in between Paddy's legs. So yeah, it's, you know, I wouldn't say it's that bad. I mean, it's not, look, you look at that loss compared to Jalen Turner KOing the shit out of him, this isn't that bad. And honestly, realistically, I could say that Bobby Green, if they were on the ground and then it wasn't dry, I honestly think he could have a good chance of making sure that he wouldn't get submitted. I'd believe that shit talking that he had about, you know, I can go against you on the ground for sure. I think he could have if it was second or third round when Paddy Pimblett's a bit more fatigued. But regardless, no excuses here. Paddy Pimblett won, Bobby Green lost, and a fantastic win for him. And I want him versus Moicano 100%. I want that immediately. Like, that's obviously going to be an extremely entertaining fight if it does happen. And we've got Moicano versus Benoit Saint Denis, which I think that he will more than likely possibly lose that fight on the feet. Moicano will. But that would just line him up more so for Paddy anyway. I mean, obviously, depending on the amount of damage he takes against Benoit Saint Denis. But I mean, if that fight doesn't get made, give Paddy someone like a RDA. RDA would be great, kind of a passing of the torch kind of thing, generational fight. Or possibly if it pushes up the rankings even more, like a Benny Dariush, that would be a fantastic fight on the ground. But all in all, fantastic win for Paddy, and yeah, honestly deserve that 200k. Moving up, I don't like what do we even say anymore? Like, Tom Aspinall is the most dangerous guy in MMA, without a doubt. Absolutely annihilated Curtis Blades. I mean, if he's stopping Curtis Blades in a minute, Pavlovich knocking him out, and then submitting Volkov in the first round as well, I'm gonna say it. I mean, I think Aspinall chins John Jones. I mean, if they fight, I honestly have full faith that he will absolutely destroy John Jones. Like, I honestly think he will. I think he's just way too fast. He is, you know, so filled out for heavyweight. I just can't see a world where John Jones is going to severely threaten him. I just don't see it, because yes, John Jones has the fight IQ. He's a superior wrestler. But when he gets the fight to the ground and gets Aspinall to the ground, Aspinall's been training in jiu-jitsu since he was in the womb. Like, his dad's one of the first black belts in England. Like, I just don't see many avenues for John Jones to beat Aspinall. You know, like, he doesn't have the KO power there that Aspinall probably honestly can't take. I mean, if he's taking shots from bloody Pavlovich, I can see him eating the shots from John Jones without a doubt, even though it was just one shot from Pavlovich. But I just don't see the same. John Jones isn't a KO, like a full KO, you know, artist or anything like that. You know, he's just extremely technical, slices you apart, wrestles you, submits you. So that's where it is with John Jones. But I just don't see any of that threatening Tom Aspinall, to be honest. Just that physical presence, that the speed is the difference. The speed is the absolute killer between those two. Aspinall's on, the speed is there. He is finishing John Jones. Not only that, I think that Aspinall will dethrone Miocic as the heavyweight king as well. Honestly, I think if we're looking at the landscape that the UFC heavyweight division is in now, I think he will do it. I think he'll be the best heavyweight champion there has ever been, because if you've got guys like Blades, like Pavlovich, like Volkov, who are literally all at the top, he's finished all of them in the first round. Then he's got Cyril Gane, who he will shoot and take down and submit. What else is there for him? Like, no one that we know of at this point in time is going to be able to finish Tom Aspinall. I'm honestly so confident that he is honestly the best heavyweight that we are going to have. And I think I'm most confident as well that he is the most stable champion that we could have. Like, in line with like Islam Makhachev. Like, aside from him, Tom and Aspinall, 100%. I'm probably more confident. I'm more confident in Tom Aspinall retaining a title than Islam Makhachev at this point, to be honest. He just runs through absolutely everyone. Doesn't make it look like it's competitive by any way, shape, or form. Not in a million years. And enough about that. We'll look at the actual fight. Let's look at Curtis Blades. I mean, Aspinall just took him out. I mean, he like the jab, then the hook follow up, which barely even connected. That's just really showing the power. I mean, the only thing I can see is there is like a semi argument for Curtis Blades in the sense of, you know, it could have been called a little bit early. I mean, Curtis, if you look at that fight and you look at when Tom Aspinall was obviously teeing off on Curtis Blades on the ground and had his back, he wasn't fully on Curtis Blades' back per se. Like, he hadn't fully mounted it. But Curtis Blades, as soon as the ref was calling, as soon as Goddard was calling it, Blades, like just as he was about to, Blades postured back up. So there's always a possibility that Blades could have gotten back up. But I'm definitely siding with what Tom Aspinall has said. And realistically, if it was going to go one way, I think Tom Aspinall would have seen that through and then split him from consciousness, realistically. I just don't see him actually I don't see the result being changed, to be honest. I think Tom Aspinall would have won regardless. So I think it's fair. It's good that Blades didn't take any extra damage, but it's also at the same time, it is rough for him. I mean, you saw his reaction after the fight, like as the fight finished, and you know, he was upset, which in a sense is fair, but I honestly, as looking at as a fan, I don't see it would have gone any other way, and I don't think many people would disagree with me on that, honestly. And in terms of matchups for Tom Aspinall, I think that he honestly just gets the title auto unified for himself. Like, I don't think he'll have to fight for a unification, which I'd mention a lot more in my heavyweight division is a mess video. If you haven't checked that out already, I'll leave it in the description below. And that's because I think, like, when Jones and Miocic fight at UFC 309, they're both gone. I think they're both going to retire, and then, I mean, who does Aspinall fight? I mean, he could fight Alex Pereira, but Alex Pereira still has to get through Ankalaev, so the timelines might not line up exactly, because Tom Aspinall obviously has taken absolutely no damage. So I feel like by the time 309 happens, Aspinall will he'll be the backup, and then those two will retire, and then Alex Pereira will have just fought or will be just about to fight Ankalaev. And then Pereira will need some time off. And I think in that time period, possibly just before that fight, I think they'll just auto unify Tom Aspinall's belt. Honestly, like, if he's like, the only other option is like Cyril versus Volkov, or Cyril and Volkov, the winner of that. But even with those two, I mean, either of them might not come out unscathed. They might take even more time. And Tom Aspinall, honestly, why does he need to wait? I mean, he's the interim champ. Realistically, if John Jones isn't going to fight him, make him the champion. Everyone believes that should be the case. I would be surprised if you don't. And yeah, honestly, I think, yeah, what can we say? Flawless performance from Tom Aspinall. There's really not much to say, because all of his fights last about 5 seconds. So yeah, very good win for him. Unlucky for Curtis Blades. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens moving forward, not only for Aspinall, but with that heavyweight division. And moving on to the main event. Remember the champion. What do we even say? Belal Muhammad, I mean, he's done it. I mean, he has absolutely cooked the MMA world right now. It is in absolute ruin. And honestly, I don't think I've seen a single prediction thinking that Belal would have won this fight. Not even just this fight, honestly, being a UFC champion, aside from obviously his team and his coaches and his country, there's honestly literally no predictions that I've seen that have thought this. I mean, he is literally the most hated fighter in MMA. Leon, honestly, I thought that he was going to be undefeated for quite a while, and Belal just showed out and he got it done. I mean, his wrestling was on another level compared to, you know, Leon fighting Kamaru in the third fight. Belal offered so much more, which is completely what I didn't think he would do. He offered so much more. He got the high crotch in there. He, you know, flipped Leon literally on his head. I mean, he did a fantastic job, not only in the wrestling, but honestly, he looked fantastic when it came to the striking as well. He just looked fantastic. I mean, his forward pressure with his 1-2s against the cage, I mean, it was definitely enhanced by Leon looking like shit. I mean, Leon looked so flat in this fight. I'm not sure if it was the time difference or, you know, the other things that came into play, but he looked like he wanted to take a nap for half the fight. He looked so drawn out. And yeah, Belal with the strike speed, that was probably the most surprising. His strike speed was honestly on par, even quicker than Leon's strike speed. And that's something that you could tell Leon was not expecting the speed of, like, his strike speed to be that quick. And I mean, you have to commend all the parts of MMA when it comes to Belal's game. Realistically, obviously, aside from the submissions, but yeah, he did a fantastic job of just really pressuring Leon, not letting him breathe. I mean, he frustrated Leon completely, pretty much the entire time, backing him up against the cage. I mean, he laid out the 1-2s perfectly. The uppercut through the middle in that first round, Leon's eyes rolled to the back of his head. I know Leon hit an uppercut on Belal as well, but I think Belal's just looked a lot better, to be honest. And I mean, it was definitely a fight where the momentum switched back and forth a fair bit. I mean, Leon did look flat, but there were moments in that fight where he was taking over. Obviously, it wasn't a 50-45 or anything like that. I had it as a 48-47, not a 49-46. You know, I'm not sure if it's like the time for Leon. I mean, there's other aspects there, I'm sure, but it was actually a benefit for Belal training and fighting on normal American time, because that's what he's used to, compared to Leon's training time in the UK. And that's like any of the UK fighters, they were actually at the disadvantage over any of the other fighters that were training in America coming over, because they didn't have to change up their body clock. I mean, their body clocks were completely adjusted, whereas Leon and all these other fighters, they had to completely readjust it because they're so used to training during the day, whereas Leon's literally fighting at 6 a.m. and having to prep through from like 2 or 3 a.m. So it's definitely, it's not fair, honestly. It's really not fair for, no, it's not only Leon, it's just not fair for the UK fighters. They should have done it at the time where it was an advantage for the UK fighters. Yeah, it's really not fair. Obviously, it's business and everything like that for the UFC when it comes to making sure it's on Vegas time. But yeah, really, really sucks for especially Leon. I mean, Paddy got it done, Aspinall got it done, but sucks for Leon in that sense, because obviously it is the title. I mean, and he did not look at his best, and we know that he is a lot better than that. But the worst part for Leon, which I do think that he was underestimating Belal throughout that whole week. I mean, I'm not making excuses for Leon. I think the worst part of all, when it came to the fight specifically, is him circling. Leon circling out was non-existent. He was not circling away from Belal Muhammad, and he was just letting Belal pressure forward and just land free shots on him. I mean, he was just basically giving him free shots and takedown entries as well. So he was allowing Belal to get that control time in 12 minutes of control time overall. Very impressive against someone like Leon. And that's down to Leon, honestly, in part, really letting Belal get to those positions that allowed him to get taken down and controlled and get free shots on him. So yeah, I mean, really poor from Leon in that perspective, most of all when it came to his game. And then we got Leon getting piked straight on the top of his head, and that was hard as well. That, when I saw that, I honestly thought he was out cold for a second. You know, straight Rose Namajunas against Jessica Andrade style. I thought he was going to be out cold. I mean, he didn't move for a little bit. I was like, that's not good. But you know, Leon did a fairly good job when it came to that ground control of slipping out the back door. He did a good job of slipping out the back door, getting control of Belal, and then getting the, you know, the body lock and getting the body triangle as well, which they both just traded body triangles, which did make the fight a bit boring, obviously. But I mean, they did what they had to do. Well, Belal did what he had to do. And when we look at Leon in terms of moments of brilliance, the ground and pound in the 5th round, where he literally just started caving Belal's nose in. I mean, he needed that 3 rounds earlier. If he had that 3 rounds earlier, then he wouldn't have even needed the urgency. But when it came to that 5th round, the urgency was there, but it was just too little too late for him. He just did not get it off. Honestly, maybe if he had an extra minute, he could have actually finished him, because Belal was bleeding bad. He got split open badly on his nose. But yeah, this is probably the worst Leon we've actually seen in a long time. I mean, he looked tired, he looked flat, and, you know, definitely not fluid in his combinations, which he usually is on the feet. But nothing to take away from Belal Muhammad. I mean, nothing but respect for him, as much as people hate him, and it was a snoozer of a fight. You have to give credit where credit's due. I mean, he adapts extremely well from fight to fight and fighter to fighter. I mean, beating fighters like Sean Brady to Gilbert Burns to Leon Edwards, they're different styles of fighters, and he did very well against absolutely all of them. And now it's time to give Belal Muhammad Shavkat Rakhmonov for his first title defense and really test that submission defense of Belal Muhammad's. It's going to be interesting to see, and I don't think Belal is going to have a long title run. I mean, he's 36 now, but it was make or break for him at this point. So yeah, great for Belal. And Leon, I mean, Leon will be back. I mean, he's young, and honestly, I think he should take a bit of time off and, you know, hopefully chin Ian Gary on the way back up to the top to another title shot. And moving on to the Fight Card Awards, kicking it off with the fighter to watch. Got to give it to Sam Patterson, honestly. As I said in the predictions, which I gave him the fighter to watch in the predictions, This guy, he's early into his career and he has a very good build for welterweight. I think he's going to be a good fighter to watch moving from lightweight to welterweight. And having that 78-inch reach, it's, you know, it's just a very good physical attribute to have. And he did a very good job of just doing Kiefer Crosbie in. I mean, Kiefer had absolutely nothing going for him in that fight to beat Sam Patterson. And once Patterson tidies up that striking defense and and gets that offensive wrestling threat going, I think he'll be able to make waves in that welterweight division moving forward. And moving on to finish of the night, I've got to give it to Paddy Pimblett. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to really deny this guy, to be honest. I mean, he's not wrong when he says that, you know, a lot of people underestimate him, and he's now proving them wrong again and again and again. I mean, aside from the Jared Gordon fight. And honestly, I think he's just gaining a lot of fans back from that Jared Gordon fight if he's getting clear finishes like this. And obviously he got that decisive win against Tony Ferguson as well. So I think he deserves the credit, and he's one of the most dangerous guys on the ground. Like, when it comes to specific submission ground game, he's one of the most dangerous in that lightweight division. I mean, that was completely exercised in this fight. You can't count out Bobby. Bobby's 9-2 with submissions, and the last time he got finished by a submission was 15 years ago, and he got completely done out. I mean, the transitional capabilities of Paddy Pimblett to get that submission is where it's dangerous, because he knows how to just execute a finish very quickly and how to transition into that point very quickly. So very, very well deserved dream win in the for that location for Paddy Pimblett on this card. And now for the third most notable moment on the card, Paddy Pimblett. I mean, just adding on from the finish of the night, Paddy just really showed that he belongs in the top 15 now. I mean, taking out a vet like Bobby Green, who hasn't been submitted in 15 years, and the way he did it is extremely impressive. I mean, Paddy is relatively young as well, so if he can get his goddamn chin tucked and maintain this momentum, he's going to be making a shit ton more money than that 200k like he did today. Obviously, he's a superstar in the UFC, so no doubt that that's going to be happening. And on to second place, Aspinall absolutely bulldozing Blades. I mean, just like Paddy taking out Bobby Green as a veteran, Tom Aspinall just absolutely dog walked Curtis Blades, who's been a veteran in that heavyweight division. Tom Aspinall is going to be that guy that's going to be a champion for a long time. I'm extremely confident in picking that, and picking that he's going to be the one to maintain the belt for, honestly, probably the longest amount of time out of any of the champions we've got now. And yeah, he is just the most dangerous guy in MMA today. And John Jones, watch out, mate. And moving on to the best moment of the card, Belal Muhammad winning the title. I mean, can't put anything or anyone here except for the MMA Messiah, the God himself, Belal. Remember, the champion Muhammad. You just can't. I mean, it's just good because everyone hates him. You know, it's just really good for him. I mean, he shut so many people up. Like, and people just could not fathom this. It's like when you see like Sean Strickland being champion, or if Colby Covington was ever champion, he's in that realm. Like, and Ian Gary's getting there too. Yeah, honestly, it is a fantastic win for him. And I mean, this is why I love MMA, because literally the craziest shit can just happen at any moment. And I mean, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And for Belal, this is the time that he had to make this count. I mean, because me, you, and your nan's bloody dog all knew that without a doubt, if he lost this, there was never going to be another title shot for him ever again. So kudos to him for seizing this opportunity and beating Leon Edwards, who is honestly one of the best champions on his best days, without a doubt. And we'll see where he goes from here as champion for as long as it lasts. I hope you enjoyed this recap video, and if you want to see more MMA content, check out my video on the top 5 first title defenses in UFC history. Just got that up on the screen now. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.